believe, what's that sound? Oh, goodness. Sounds like a little critter near me. Um, Hello, I'm Jane Frizzell, and this is Basic Military Riding. Um, and these Tuesday afternoons, we are going through the Fort Riley 1935 instructions, which are identical to Saumur 1912. So if you're interested in what is actually French classical instead of the Facebook version of French classical, this is it. The instructions from Saumur 1912, which were adopted by the United States in 1913 and translated by Adna Chaffee for Fort Riley under the orders of the Department of War. And we are now in section 23, which lists the 4 principal factors in training. Those 4 principal factors are A, the instructor trainer, B, the rider, C, the work, and D, time. Today, we're talking about C, the work. And this is on page 171 of Fort Riley 1935 instructions, which is a public domain document. You can find it online. Please only use 1934 or pre-mechanization editions of the Fort Riley instructions because they get wonky afterwards because sportsmen take over instead of the men who really counted on and used their horses in service. Okay. The work is any method of training. So the work, they're going to tell us what it's not. They're not interested in anything that isn't based on conditioning the horse for all around well-rounded use. So this process and this, the program of basic military riding makes an excellent all-over horse, a well-rounded horse. And it's actually, let me read you, I'm skipping ahead in the paragraph. A military horse or a well-rounded, competent, well-started horse should go calmly and freely at all gaits cross country, either alone or in groups. He should jump obstacles of any type without excitement. That means he should go in the water and down the bank. He should be able to bear arms and remain quiet during all types of firing and confusion around him. A parade, for example. And he should be able to carry his rider at steady gaits on longer road marches. Now, to me, those requirements sound, especially that last one, sounds a lot like the old long form 3-day test. So that had roads and tracks. I want to talk about a couple things that get very confused. So that they could shoot from their horse, or maybe they need to be able to rope off that horse, or there's lots of other utilities for a horse. And a big error that I hear is people talking about desensitizing a horse. Like you desensitize them to stimulus. That is absolutely not what we're talking about. The horse must be cognizant of what is going on around him and elect by his own discipline to concentrate on the task at hand and not the environment. That is a significant difference to these people that are making zombies with their pool noodles and their fake pistols firing blanks. We're not making a zombie here. We're making a professional. And even if the horse is meant to be for someone's pleasure, he is a professional when he's being ridden. And there is a degree of the horse having to have his own his own self-discipline, his own understanding of his assignment and his mission. And the coddling and the infantilization is really a disservice to horses. And by, I talk baby talk to my horses. That's not what I'm talking about, coddling. But they need to pay attention. They need to know what's what. They need to not, they can notice things, but they can't, how can I say it? A horse I had might say, Jane, there's turkeys in the brush over there. Though one of the ones I have now goes, oh my God, the turkeys are in the brush. They're not supposed to be. And he's not afraid of a coyote. The turkeys are a problem, the coyote isn't. So this is not a horse that has understood that, thank you for letting me know there's turkeys in the brush. Coyote, I'd like to know so I can put the dog in the house. But neither of those events should cause the horse to wig out. And whether that is, and whether then there's that, the utility use of the horse, whether it's shooting off a horse or roping off a horse or doing tasks off a horse, like I'm going to stop and open the gate, or all of the, many of the exercise that working equitation, which is a new sport, which I think is a great sport. Everyone should be looking into working equitation. They are tasks that the horse performs. So then there's a conditioning factor too. These horses must be fit. They can't be crazy. So they can't be so fit that they're crazy. And that is why the long form and even the short form 3-day, they do their dressage to prove that they can concentrate. And then they do the gnarly cross country. And then they prove their sound on the 3rd day in the stadium. So, and I hope I'm not being like talking ahead of people that are just getting into horses. What I'm referring to right now is the Olympic sport, now known as 3-day eventing or eventing, was, when it started in the Olympic Games, it was called military. And it was the military's 3-day test for a horse that could pass muster to be used, put to use even in combat. I don't think all of the horses were combat horses, but so, and what they had to do is they had to go on a long, like basically like a ruck march. Yeah, I can't remember how many miles it was. Significant, like 20 miles or something. Day one, then they have to do dressage, then they have to do a pretty intimidating and like untended ground, like cross country, like go through brambles, go down banks, cross water, that kind of thing. And then the 3rd day after all that, then they do a course of jumps in a stadium like polite gentlemen. So the horses can get like, I can do it, and be all sort of over rowdy, but they still have to be able to settle and concentrate in public. And when people are thinking about desensitizing a horse, it's also like for a parade or, I had a pony, the pony that brought me along when I was a young girl. He was a very even-minded pony. And I never practiced, but I took him in a 4th of July parade with lots of unruly people and unruly children who didn't know about ponies, carrying sparklers and, occasionally a firecracker. And he just marched along, and he was being old Nelson or George Washington. It was the bicentennial. Point being that a well-rounded, well-brought along horse is not unsensitive. He is sane. He has the discipline. So I'm going to go back to section C, the work. This is making horses that are well-rounded like this. In training, as in breaking, outside work will always remain the essential part because these military horses, they weren't for the riding hall. But here it's going to tell us that there is a proper proportion between the riding hall or arena work and riding out. And that is 1/3 arena work. When I was at the majors, those were finished horses, so they did a little more arena work. We did 3 or 4 days of arena work, usually 3. And then they had like a gallop out, like go to the beach and gallop. And they also had a day of going out for a huge big walk, like over an hour, totally forward on the buckle, no touche-pas reins at all. So there was aerobic and mental training, conditioning, and discipline training. The gymnastic exercises are intended to prepare the horse for outdoor service, for riding out, for being safe out, whether alone or in groups, as we feel. Okay. Outside work is necessary in order that the conditioning of the young horse can keep pace with his training. Aside from conditioning alone, outside work is necessary to assist in training the horse in all the work. It gets them fit. And it should be trot, walk, trot, and canter. Like just going on gallops, like they need to do the roads and tracks in the original military Olympic test that I believe was all trot. I think all the roads and tracks day was all trot. Okay, you should jump obstacles. I already read you this list. If the horse is to be trained in these essentials, the instructor must so arrange his schedule of training that they all receive their proper proportion of time throughout the training period. By proper coordination of training, the discipline, obedience, and lightness inculcated in the horse as a result of the gymnastic exercises indoors can be used to perfect the young horse in his outdoor training and assist in adding balance and control. Balance meaning uphill, control meaning that the horse is understands and follows the rider's aids, which are indispensable. So I think that sounds like a great horse to ride, don't you? I think that one of the things that and it does specifically tell us that the indoor gymnastic work, arena gymnastics, are 1/3, should not exceed 1/3 of the whole. So a 6-day work week, you're talking 2 days in the arena. I think it can be 3. But that is qualified that these that in indoor gymnastics or arena gymnastics, there are frequent breaks, never over an hour. In between exercises, there is lots of marching on the buckle. Do a hard exercise, a hard collected exercise, finish, then walk or rising trot all the way back down to the end to repeat it. So you don't just do counter change, turn, counter change. You don't go over and over and over and over, because even the joints and muscles, like if they really use themselves in an exercise, they're like, oh, and then you go, okay, you got 30 seconds. And they're like, all right. And then in the 30 seconds or 60 seconds, whatever it is, they can go again. Maybe you do 3, maybe you do 5. I don't know. This is something I want to bring up. The discipline is the horse's own discipline. They learn. This is how I use my body. They learn. They don't say it this way, but they go, I start every activity with coxofemoral articulation by load bearing. He's thinking, yeah, I got my ass in gear. Then it's easier to do this shit. That's the horse's mind. But what that is in equitation science is what I just said a moment ago. You follow me? So we have to know this stuff because we have to explain the gymnastic work and apply it to the outdoor activities that can be complex and some of them even a little scary or intimidating, say. We have to explain this to young horses with our butts. So we really have to know what we're doing in advance. And the way the Army doesn't say it blunt and crude like I do, they say, I'm going to read it. The fundamental, so whatever method is decided upon in whatever particular moment and whichever particular exercise, which we already know from last week that the gymnastic figures, the exercises, must have a clearly defined objective and be ridden by the natural aids toward the attainment of the objective, or else it won't matter what you do. Go back to the end of section 22 and read that warning from them. So the objective, now I'm going back to the middle of section 22. And this is in italics. Okay, when these guys put separate paragraphs in all italics, that's them saying, don't skim over this, dude. The fundamental principles of training concern themselves with the development of a calm, forward-thinking, straight, and manageable horse. That's the marching orders. Okay, so back to what I'm saying about, so the horse is inculcated with his own discipline, obedience, or if you don't like that word, following the instructions that he is receiving from his rider, who he's trained his ear to, even though his ear is his butt. And lightness, meaning that he's automatic, attentive, doing his best, and not leaning on the hand or trying to make things easier for himself and going, or going, yeah, I won't. You know, all of these little things, these are what the horses do. But remember, we want to make a we want to make a horse with his own discipline, his own understanding of his own athleticism that he takes pride in and enjoys. The fundamental principles of training concern themselves in the development of a calm, forward-thinking, athletically straight-going horse that's into what he's doing. And for that, the rider trainer has to have the curriculum and the objective in their mind. And that is why we're spending time on these theoretical lectures with no horse in sight, so that people who really care about horses more than they care about being popular, and people who really need to make horses for particular use, even if that use is mere competition, will have a plan. Horses love a plan. They love routine and they love a plan. And when something makes sense to a horse, I've met fewer than a handful out of hundreds over many years. When they understand, they say